where we need to be, but we've certainly made progress. And the reason we've made progress, in part, has been because of the outstanding management and productivity gains and efficiencies and competitiveness that you've been able to achieve in each and every one of your companies. And I've said this to some of the small groups. Let me repeat it to the large group. I am passionately rooting for your success. Because if the companies in this room...
We are right now live with the Obama Small Business Roundtable. This is live during the market.
If the companies in this room are doing well, then folks get jobs, consumers get confidence, and we're going to be able to compete around the world. The good news is that despite the extraordinary challenges that we've seen over the last 4 years, there is progress in some key sectors of our economy. We've seen housing finally begin to bounce back for the first time, and that obviously has an enormous ripple effect throughout the economy. Consumer confidence is as high as it's been. Many of you over the last 2-3 years have experienced record profits or near record profits, and have a lot of money where you're prepared to invest in plants and equipment and hire folks. Obviously, globally, the economy is still soft. Europe is going to be in the doldrums for quite some time. Asia is not charging forward, and some of the emerging markets are not charging forward as quickly as they were maybe a few years ago. But I think what all of you recognize, and many of you have told me, is that everybody's looking to America. Because they understand that if we're able to put forward a long-term agenda for growth and prosperity that's broad-based here in the United States, that confidence will not just increase here in the United States, it will increase globally. And we can get the kind of virtuous cycle that I think all of us have been waiting for and want to see. What's holding us back right now, ironically, is a lot of stuff that's going on in this town. And I know that many of you have come down here to try to see, is there a way that we can break through the logjam and go ahead and get things done. And I'm here to tell you that nobody wants to get this done more than me. I know that you've gotten a lot of briefings, but let me just try to describe where the situation is right now with respect to our fiscal situation, both what the opportunities are, but what also the challenges are. I campaigned over the last year on the idea that we need to make sure that this economy is growing and that we're providing ladders of opportunity.
All right, there's the president.
Okay, here we are. We have audio back with Mr. Obama at the roundtable.
Some tough decisions when it comes to government spending, because despite, I think, my reputation or the reputation of Democrats, I don't think every government program works exactly the way it should. I think there are efficiencies that can be gained. There's some programs that used to work and just don't work now the way they were intended. And as a consequence, working with Democrats and Republicans last year, we were able to cut over $1 trillion of spending. The largest cut, by the way, in discretionary spending in history. So we're prepared to make some tough decisions when it comes to spending cuts. But if you look at what's needed in order for us to stabilize our budget, stabilize our deficit to GDP ratio, or debt to GDP ratio, then every credible economist will tell you that you can't just do it on spending cuts. We can't cut our way to prosperity, but there's got to be a balanced approach in which we also are bringing in new revenue, partly because our revenue levels are as low as they've been.
We're trying to...
Good morning.
Do you expect this to be a hostile audience or not?
Well, I have not been informed of what group the president is with, so I can't really speak to what he's saying right now.
Earlier we had, of course, the Republican leadership, Majority Whip McCarthy said the next 72 hours, in his words, are critical to the negotiations. What is so special about the next 3 days?
Well, the American people are hurting. We're running out of time. As long as we have uncertainty across this nation, the American people are going to be concerned about what we're doing here. And so the next 72 hours are critical. We have, as Republicans, an offer on the table to the president, a balanced approach, one that puts revenues on the table, which he demanded, but also addresses the spending side of the ledger, addressing some of our autopilot spending programs, the ones that are the drivers of our debt.
Clearly, the White House wants to see you raise rates. Republicans are willing to raise revenue. Even the speaker today said they're coming from who else? The rich. If you're willing to take money out of the rich's pockets, so to speak, why does it matter so much if it's through a limit on deductions or outright marginal rates? What's the difference?
Well, our point exactly. Revenue is revenue, and we have concerns with the president's approach to raising rates. Number one, raising those top rates gets you 8 days of federal spending. That's hardly a solution to what ails this nation. It's just a distraction. In addition, the Ernst & Young study that was done on his proposal says his tax proposal will cost the American people 700,000 jobs. That's the wrong direction to go. And finally, as a CPA, I will tell you, if it's just raising rates, there's no CPA in this country worth their salt that doesn't already have a plan to plan around those higher rates. Republicans, on the other hand, have proposed revenues that actually work towards solving what's wrong with the revenue side of our ledger, and that's a comprehensive, fundamental overhaul of a very broken and antiquated tax code.
Congresswoman, appreciate your time very much. I think they might have fixed the audio issues back at where the president is. Let's listen once again to the president.
Just by closing deductions and loopholes for high earners, we'd have to, for example, eliminate or severely cap the charitable deduction. And folks in this room, you guys are not only CEOs. I can't imagine there's a person here who doesn't sit on a number of not-for-profit boards, university boards, hospital boards. In your respective communities, you are supporting an entire infrastructure that is the glue that holds our communities together. So the notion that somehow we're going to just eliminate charitable deductions is unlikely. What that means is that any formula that says we can't increase tax rates probably only yields about $300 to $400 billion, realistically. And that's well short of the amount of revenue that's needed for a balanced package. So, what we've said instead is, let's allow higher rates to go up for the top 2%. That includes all of you, yes. But not in any way that's going to affect your spending, your lifestyles, or the economy in any significant way. Let's make sure that 98% of Americans don't see a single dime in tax increases next year. 97% of small businesses don't see a single dime in tax increases next year. And by doing that alone, we raise almost $1 trillion. Without any adverse effects on the economy. Let's combine that then with some additional spending cuts and some long-term entitlement reform that can get us to a number close to $4 trillion, which stabilizes our debt and our deficits relative to GDP for at least a decade, perhaps more. That's our plan. That's what we've presented. The holdup right now is that Speaker Boehner took a position, I think the day after the campaign, that said, we're willing to bring in revenue, but we're not willing to increase rates. And I've just explained to you why we don't think that works. We're not trying to, we're not insisting on rates just out of spite or out of any kind of partisan bickering, but rather because we need to raise a certain amount of revenue. Now, we've seen some movement over the last several days among some Republicans. I think there's a recognition that maybe they can accept some rate increases, as long as it's combined with serious entitlement reform and additional spending cuts. And if we can get the leadership on the Republican side to take that framework, to acknowledge that reality, then the numbers actually aren't that far apart. Another way of putting this is, we can probably solve this in about a week. It's not that tough. But we need that conceptual breakthrough that says we need to do a balanced plan. That's what's best for the economy. That's what the American people voted for. That's how we're going to get it done. Let me make one last point, and then I'll start taking questions. There have been reports, and these are not necessarily confirmed, and maybe some of you have more insight than I do on this, that perhaps the Republicans go ahead and let the middle class tax cuts get extended, the upper income tax cuts go up. Otherwise, we don't get a deal. And next year we come back, and the thinking is the Republicans will have more leverage because there will be another vote on the debt ceiling, and we will try to extract more concessions with a stronger hand on the debt ceiling. I have to just tell you, that is a bad strategy for America. It's a bad strategy for your businesses, and it is not a game that I will play. Most of you were involved in discussions and watched the catastrophe that happened in August of 2011. Everybody here is concerned about uncertainty. There's no uncertainty like the prospect that the United States of America, the largest economy that holds the world's reserve currency, potentially defaults on its debts. That we give up the basic notion that the United States stands behind its obligations. And we can't afford to go there again. And this isn't just my opinion, it's the opinion of most of the folks in this room. So when I hear some on the other side suggesting that to resolve the possibility of a perpetual or a quarterly debt ceiling crisis, that there is a price to pay. Well, the price is paid by the American people and your businesses and the economic environment worldwide. And we should not accept going through that. You know, John Engler, who is I think, he and I philosophically don't agree on much. No, I'm just being honest about John. He's a great politician, but he originally comes from the other party. But John is exactly right when he says that the only thing that the debt ceiling is good for as a weapon is to destroy your credit rating. So I want to send a very clear message to people here. We are not going to play that game next year. If Congress in any way suggests that they're going to tie negotiations to debt ceiling votes and take us to the brink of default once again as part of a budget negotiation, which, by the way, we have never done in our history until we did it last year, I will not play that game, because we've got to break that habit before it starts. So with that, let me just say we've got one path where we resolve this fairly quickly. We've got some tough spending cuts. We reform our entitlements. We have modest revenue increases. You get business certainty. You do what you do best: innovate, invest, hire workers, make profits, do well by your shareholders, and grow America. And we then have an open running room next year to deal with a whole host of other issues like infrastructure, and tax reform, and immigration reform that will further make America competitive. That's one option. The other option is to engage in a self-inflicted series of wounds that will potentially push us back into recession and set back this country, after all the work that we've done over the last 4 years digging ourselves out of a hole. I know the choice I'd like to make, and I think the BRT can be helpful in making sure that everybody here in Washington makes the right choice. All right. So with that, let me take some questions. Yeah, I think the press is. They've probably got enough there to spin a story. Meanwhile, let me thank John.
All right. So a caveat to all the executives in the room that the media is recording this.
Going to get ready to have a little bit of Q&A session. What we did was, we're covering this right now because we have our views. The world has their views. And most importantly is that there is a real chess game going down. And once again, it's good for people to understand how markets will be affected. We've done lots of coverage on it, and so there's going to be a Q&A session that's going to come up here in a minute. The Dow is back into positive territory slightly. Stocks like Apple sold down. Google sold down. Lots of names have sold down. The volatility is still here. Basically, we will come back to this and listen to some of the questions that may be asked here in a moment when the audio comes back on. What we will do is just let everyone know that there will be a Q&A session later, and we'll address it right now. We have some of the core elements of what Mr. Obama had to say, that the next 72 hours are very important, that markets have been held hostage, everything has, and when do we get relief, and what does it look like, and when do these two parties come to an agreement, and what is fair and what is balanced. I will conclude the video right now. Once again, we appreciate you for visiting stockmarketfunding.com, our parent website, bringing this live to you. Yes, in the background, there's some price movements on Apple and Google moving up off of their lows. We've got the Dow popping on the news here. This is that volatility. It is the month of December. Today's date is 12/5 of calendar 2012. And we're going to let these ranges set their volatilities, which we have. There's a $10 up finally on this Apple deal now. And as far as Google goes, we got $5 off the bottom. So we had a $12 range reversal off of the highs on Google. That is the update. Fiscal cliff, markets, price volatility, high frequency algorithmic programs are kicking in the intraday process in the exchanges, based on the volatility of the headlines of the United States government and the fiscal cliff.